A goat allergy test for people has a 93% accuracy rate, and only 4.1% of the population has an allergy to goats. This is all made-up data. We are now going to use a group of 100,000 people to create a table and then answer the questions A through C. Okay, so things we have to know. We have a 93% accuracy rate, 4.1% of the population is allergic to goats, and we're going to use 100,000 people. So, moving on to our table. You can see we've got the has allergy versus does not have the allergy, 2 rows, and then we have the test positive, test negative column, and we have our totals. So we know right off the bat that we have 100,000 people. Now, I'm going to color code these and then do some math and color, okay? So we know that 4.1% have the allergy. So when we're talking about the total, so I'll mark that by red, 4.1% is 0.041 of the 100,000 people will be expected to have the goats, the allergy to the goats. So that gives us 4,100 people who will be allergic to goats. Well, that means everybody else is not allergic. So if I take my 100,000 people, subtract the 4,100 who are allergic to goats, that will give me 95,900 who are not allergic to goats. All right, so that kind of gives me my total column at the end. Now we have to use our 93% effective rate. So when I'm thinking about this green box here, if you have the allergy, right, if you are allergic to goats, you would expect to test positive because you're allergic to goats, right? That makes sense. So if you have the allergy, you would expect to test positive. That's where the 93% comes in. So of the 4,100 people who are allergic to goats, 93% of them are going to test positive. And that comes out to be 3,813. Well, we started with 4,100. So if 4,100 of my allergic to goats people and only 3,813 of them tested positive, the rest tested negative, which is 287. Hopefully that makes sense. Now let's go to we're going to light shade of blue. Oops, that's not the one I wanted to put it in. Let's use a lighter shade. If you do not have an allergy to goats, you would expect to test negative, right? Because I'm not allergic, so I would test negative. So 93% of my 95,900 non-goat allergic people are going to test negative, which is 89,187. And if we started out with 95,900 people not allergic to goats and 89,187 of them tested negative, then the rest, which would be 6,713, tested positive. So hopefully that color coding made sense a little bit. And now we can use simple addition to figure out how many test positive. Well, if I add those two numbers together, I have 10,526 who tested positive and 89,474 who tested negative. If you add those two together, these two numbers, you will get 100,000, right? So that's important always to double check. That's an easy way to check your math. So that right there is our table that we will now use to answer our questions. Okay, so let's look at question A. First piece is very important. If you test positive, well, that's a conditional probability statement. So if you test positive, we know 10,526 people tested positive. That's going to be your denominator, 10,526. Then what is the probability you have a goat allergy? Okay, so we're in the deposit, we're in this column. You have a goat allergy. Well, that's the 3,813. So 3,813 over 10,526. Let's go to 3 decimal places, and I have a 0.362. Right there's you got a 36% chance. If you test positive, you have a 36% chance of actually being allergic to goats. Which means if you test positive, you got a 64% chance of not being allergic to goats, right? Big difference there. Okay, letter B. If you test negative, so now we're looking at the negative column, and we know that there are 89,474 people who tested negative. So with our conditional probability, since that follows if, that goes in my denominator. Okay, so you tested negative. What's the probability you do not have it? Well, the non-allergic people are 89,187, which comes up to be 0.997. So you've got a 99.7% chance of not having a goat allergy if you test negative. So if you test negative, you can be pretty sure that you're not allergic to goats, where that is not necessarily the case if you test positive, right? If you test positive, there's only a 36% chance that you actually are allergic to goats. So it's kind of a, and that simply is because there are way more people who are not allergic to goats. Okay, so let's go to the letter C. If you test positive, oh, we're back to positive. Well, that's 10,526. What's the probability you do, why do I have the word dog? Now, whatever. So that's supposed to say goat. Sorry about that. What's the probability you do not have a goat allergy? Well, we know that 6,713 of them are not allergic to goats, and therefore we would have 0.638. And you will notice that this is oh my gosh, the word is escaping me. It's the other half of part A, right? You put them together and you get 1. Oh my gosh, the word is escaping me. When they add up together, complement. Yes, that is the complement of part A. So you get a 63.8% chance of not being allergic to goats if you test positive.